Okay, you sit down too. Okay, everybody, we are rolling. So I'm Bob Pargament of the Westchester Hypnosis Center, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, John Cerbone. And we're here to discuss, as part of a series, this is the first episode of what I hope will be an ongoing series of hypnotist to hypnotist conversations to talk about this amazing modality. I think John and I were both motivated to go into hypnosis probably for the same reasons of being fascinated by it, wanting to help other people. We'll hear more from John in a second. But in this first episode, we're going to be talking about stage hypnosis and hypnosis in general to get John's insights and knowledge of this. John is very successful in the realm of stage hypnosis, does a lot of shows for corporations, for educational institutions, and he'll tell us more about that. But the first question I want to ask you, John, is how you got into hypnosis. What was the genesis of it for you? What started you in this process?
Well, when I was a small boy, my parents would say, go pick up your room. And somehow it just naturally came to me to lie down on the bed, deep breathe, change my energy, and then get up and clean the room. So I actually cleaned the room in a form of self-hypnosis. So when I went out to play, 3 and 4 and 5 years old with the other kids, on a weekend, I wasn't dragging around with sore legs and a bad back and moping around the way the other kids were. So throughout grammar school, there were kids approaching me, feeling I could help them. So I would discuss the idea of closing their eyes, and I would externalize what I had been doing on myself. And when they opened their eyes, they didn't want to run away from home. In high school or in college, it might be suicide in some cases, or running away from home again, or something other crazy thing they were going to do. And when they opened their eyes, they didn't want to run away and do those things again. So basically, it's the kind of a thing where I've been at this most of my entire existence, in some form or another. And eventually I took this into corporate America in various jobs I had in Salesforce organizations where I was motivating the sales forces to go out and sell. And eventually from there, the public demand started where people asked me to do this in public. And one day after a workshop, a fellow came up and said, "You're one heck of a hypnotist. I have a hypnosis school. Come get trained." And that's the first of about 44 hypnosis certifications I currently hold.
Pretty interesting. So it started out as a way of you taking care of yourself initially, which I think is probably pretty common in terms of people discovering deeper states that they can go into with a little patience and a little trial and error, and then you found that you were able to apply it to others to help other people in their lives, which I think motivates a lot of hypnotists, wanting to do some sort of good and make the world a little bit better. So when you look at the overall profession, which I think is greatly misunderstood, people really don't understand this process. There's still a certain amount of stigma to it. What does hypnosis mean to you? I know that's sort of a broad question, but what is it? How do you see this process apart from the classic definitions of it as a bypass of the critical factor, or the more technical definitions of theta state and things like that? How do you see it? Do you have a particular definition that's yours that you like to use to explain to other people?
Well, hypnosis is everywhere. I mean, 94% of what we're doing is automatic subconscious behavior. So most of us are hypnotized most of the time. We don't even realize it. So consequently, all of the life we experience is about suggestion. So the question becomes, what suggestions are we validating and making our own? Are they positive? Are they strengthening us? Are they negative? Are they weakening us? Are we dumping negative suggestions on other people and corrupting them? You think about it, many parents, for example, will tell their children, you can do anything you want in life, and then the backup behavior is the exact opposite. Don't do that. Don't touch that. What are you doing? Oh, don't try that. There's a lot of well-meaning people in their lives who have told me, people I'm close to, how are you going to make a living at this? Or what are you doing this for? But the reality is that hypnosis is all around us all the time. So our job as hypnotists is to get in there and create life transformation on a clinical basis, or a consulting hypnotism basis as we're now using the term. But also, with the comedy shows that I do, either I'm helping somebody transform their life, I'm teaching other people how to do that for others, Or I'm making people laugh and forget their troubles for an hour or 2 hours or an hour and a half somewhere in a college, a high school, a casino in Las Vegas perhaps, or Atlantic City. I've worked on Broadway as well. So the reality is that it's getting out there and banging the drum and taking where we are and bringing it to a greater place. But moreover, the current state of the profession, it's like, even though it's been around where people have practiced it for hundreds of years, I think we've got tremendous potential to upgrade this to the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 25th centuries in terms of how much further along we can go.
So what do you think has been the impediment? What do you think, I agree, I believe, and I think we would both agree that hypnosis is ever expanding in terms of the public consciousness. People are understanding it more. You see more in the mainstream press articles about celebrities using hypnosis to get into better shape, lose weight, quit smoking, whatever it might be. But what do you think has been the impediment to its greater acceptance all of these years? I mean, I know that even though I help people solve problems all the time, and it's pretty, as you know, pretty wondrous in terms of what it can do. When it clicks, it can click in a profound, life-changing way. But most people, I think, have this stereotypical notion of the stage hypnosis in their minds. They have this concept that somebody can be made to do something that they wouldn't normally do. Do you think stage hypnosis in some ways has been confusing to people in that regard?
Yeah, the two most popular books in the the 19th century, let's say, because we're in the 21st now, were Dracula and Svengali and Trilby. Svengali and Trilby was about an evil hypnotist manipulating some opera singer and using her skills for his own benefit beyond what he should have been doing. I mean, Dracula, if you think about it, is all about hypnosis. Transylvania, the Count, look into my eyes, eye fixation. So consequently, people in those years were afraid of hypnosis because they thought that they could be manipulated to do things against their will. And it's quite the opposite. It's a relaxed form of concentration. We're in and out of it 7 times a day, 7 times a day. It took me a little while to learn how to do that one. And it's something where a person can be so much more empowered to be at their very best, in the very best of ways. One of the things I pioneer is like futuristic thinking and procedures in hypnosis. And the idea is to ask the subconscious mind to be at its best in ways known and unknown to itself, to go step forward, to live a better dream, to live a better life, to climb out of the prison cell somebody's locked themselves into.
Excellent. But when people see stage hypnosis and they see people acting silly, clucking like chickens, chirping like birds.
Birds I do, chickens not so much in my shows.
But, what is happening there from your perspective, in the most objective and clinical way that you can be about stepping back and seeing this process?
Well, in my shows, I always talk about it's a screen test for Hollywood. Let your inner actor or actress out. You're playing the role of a 5 or 6-year-old kid. It's time to play. There's a 5 or 6-year-old in most of us. I know growing up myself, my grandparents used to refer to me as the little man. I was always very proper and mannish, even when I was small. And yet now, because I'm older, it's time to come out and play and make up for those years. So it's about having fun and playing and having silly fun. But beyond that, when you're doing a show, many of the shows I do are like fundraising events, where I remember one show, I raised $195,000 to fight children's cancer in one evening. So there's so much benefit to the comedy aspect. Plus, unlike going to see other types of entertainment live, the friends that you came with in the audience, perhaps even you, are the stars of the show. So the idea is to work within a boundary, not to humiliate or embarrass people.
But when people are acting silly on stage, this is what I'm trying to get at. As somebody who just does the more clinical or quote unquote therapeutic work to help people stop smoking, lose weight, overcome a fear, be more confident, whatever it might be, retrieve.
Which I do as well.
Of course, I know you do
shows.
both. That's why you're the interesting subject here, because you do straddle both areas. And I know most stage hypnotists also have some sort of productive practice on the side addressing these issues. But when people come in and are seeing people act in strange ways, what, are they being made to do something that they wouldn't normally do? How do you explain that part in terms of
Well,
what's going on? What's the mechanism there?
Basically, I'm suggesting to come out and play like a child. When you were a child, I don't know how you enjoyed yourself as a child, but in my neighborhood, we were watching a lot of old TV programs. There was World War II bomber planes, so we're flying in a plane, and then we got tired of doing that. Then we were down in the submarine, and quite often it was somebody's, used empty refrigerator box that they got a new refrigerator or something, and we're all sitting inside a refrigerator box with holes in it, so we could look out like it's a plane, it's a submarine, whatever it was. But as we played as children, we could move around from one thing to the next to the next. And it's the same thing with the shows. So it's a suggestion to be silly, to have fun, to have a good time. The average child laughs about 400 times a day, according to some research. There's different numbers on that, but some of the research I've read recently says 400 times a day. The average adult laughs between 5 and 8 times a day. And laughter fights aging, it fights disease, it stimulates intelligence and intellect, it reduces stress, and stress is a major killer. So on that level, we're having fun, we're playing. And there are some hypnotists I've seen who do stage shows that want to make somebody cry in the show. And I will not do that in my show. My show is not about humiliating somebody. I've seen other hypnotists do a show where somebody's dragging their backside across the floor. I will not do that in my shows either. I treat these people the way I would want somebody to treat me, the golden rule, the way I was raised. Treat somebody the way you'd want to be treated yourself, and from that we've got a chance at all evolving together. But one thing I do at the end of my show that's different is I give people personal empowerment suggestions, and most hypnotists I've seen doing shows don't. I tell people they've had a 9-hour nap, a 7-hour back rub, they're ready to live a better dream, a better day, make the dream a reality, seize opportunity, release procrastination. I give them the gift of clinical for being in my show and sticking with me to the end.
I get that. Okay, but I still want to come back to this point. This is an important explanatory point for the public to understand. So, what happens? What is the actual process? I mean, we both know what hypnosis is. Going back to that classic definition, bypass of the critical factor. I mean, I induce hypnosis with a progressive relaxation, a modification of the element induction that I've been using.
Or between awake and asleep, where you're half asleep, you're half awake, to the public, maybe watching a TV, maybe watching this. And you know what's going on around you, you just don't really care.